I've been writing a book for the past 2.5 years about the DC neighborhood I live in. After editing and formatting the text, I'm ready to print and bind it into a small book. One of my favorite parts is deciding on what materials to make the book out of, and I made some unconventional choices this time. I'm using color to mark each of the 4 sections in the text. So I selected this Hammermill 24-pound paper in blue, yellow, green, and pink for the book's signatures. This paper is thick enough to double-side print with my inkjet printer, but I haven't tried to hand bind a book using pages this thin. Continuing with new-to-me bookbinding materials, I also wanted to make the cover out of synthetic paper for durability, either Tyvek or Yupo. I decided to go with Yupo because it was easier to see the colored paper through it, and I liked its smooth, cloudy translucence. I haven't seen a lot of other bookmakers using Yupo, but if you have, I'd love to hear about your experiences in the comments below. As a side note, I usually make a sketch like this when I'm preparing PDF files for printing. It helps me keep straight in my mind which text blocks need to go on the front or back of each sheet of paper, so they stay in the right order when I put them together in a signature. And here are the printed pages before I cut them. I formatted the PDFs so that I could fit 4 page spreads on a single sheet of paper. This way, I only have to do 1 cut per sheet. Since I printed on both sides, I only need 1 sheet of paper to make an 8-page signature. It's a good layout if you're trying to save on materials. When I created each PDF in Affinity Designer, I also included 2 thin marks that I will use as a guide to line up this sheet evenly on a paper cutter. I like this Fiskars paper cutter because it has a wire guide for the cutting element that helps with lining up the paper. I don't have a preference for starting at the top or bottom of the page when cutting, but I do recommend using a newer cutting element because dullness can lead to rough edges. Now let's fold some paper. I'm using a cutting mat for a little grip and a bone folder. I fold each piece of paper separately and spend some time lining up the edges. Then I'll make an initial fold with my finger and go over it again with a bone folder to get a smoother, more precise fold. Once I get both pieces of paper folded, I assemble the signatures for each section. I've chosen to do separate signatures for each part of the book because of the binding method I'll be using, but I'm getting a little ahead of myself. Let's finish folding these signatures. Now that these are done, I have a more complicated signature to create. While each of the 4 sections of the main text of the book uses one color throughout the signature, I decided to make the introduction section using all 4 colors with some creative cutting to make up the title page. First, I cut each sheet in half. Fold them the same way I did with the other pages. And assemble them into a signature. Okay, so here's the vision with a UPO cover. Never mind these numbers. I make a few mock-ups of books before I decide on the final version of the binding. I write notes in pencil on the book about what I did, so I can find them later. Back to the title page. These notes tell me the measurement distance from the fold crease to where I want to cut the page. That's why I folded them all first, before I make the next cut. The blue page doesn't have any printing, and I'm cutting it a little over an inch away from the fold. The yellow page's measurement is more of a suggestion, because what's most important is lining up the cutting element before the G in Eckington and after the second S in Seasons. The wire is critical for lining this cut up. For the green page, it's a straightforward cut to the measurement. And I don't have to cut the pink page at all. Here's the vertical stripe-like result of all those cuts. I really liked using this technique to make all the paper colors visible on the title page, without having to print a separate piece of white paper with colors of ink that would only approximate the actual colors of the different papers. One last task before I can get into binding these signatures together. So I made a protective sleeve out of glassine by wrapping it around the page, then taping it. I want to protect the crisp corners and edges on the title pages and make sure the signature stays lined up correctly while I'm stitching the book together. Let's see if I can get it back on. For future reference, it's much easier to do this if you arc the shorter dimension of the page slightly while opening the sleeve into a circle. Now I'm all set to bind the book. If you want to see the binding style I use and how I deal with the numerous issues that arise from all my paper choices, be sure to subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.